All right, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday, and it is the last episode of The Mandalorian Season 3. With me today is a new face, Corbin. How's it going? Welcome.
Great.
Thanks for joining. So, The Mandalorian Season 3 finale. There was a lot of rumors going around, a lot of so-called leakers who said they had sources on what was going to happen this episode. And I feel like all the theorizers and everyone pretty much took a giant L.
Huge
yeah.
L.
Yeah. So lots of things that people thought were going to happen did not happen this episode. Most importantly, the one that was flying around was Din Djarin was going to get killed. It was going to become the Bo-Katan show. That certainly did not happen. And the fact that people actually believe that is a little insane, thinking that they were going to, like, you saw it boiling up, right? Oh, like the Mandalorian doesn't necessarily mean Din Djarin. The Mandalorian could be anybody. So people start jumping on sources, so to speak, that Din was going to be gone. And not only that, but the actor who actually physically plays Din Djarin was out on Twitter saying stuff as well.
I think he likes it. I think he likes the episode.
So he's from it though. Yeah, so he was playing it up. Did not happen that way. And I think lots of people went crazy with last week's episode called Spies, with plural there. I think it was just the way Disney decided to write the title of the episode, because there was never a second spy.
No. There could have been, but we could talk more as we go. We can talk more and theorize and stuff. But you know what? There wasn't a spy. There was no other spies. I don't think it didn't. The episode didn't show that there could have been. It showed that there actually probably wasn't. I'd say probably the armor was the biggest one that I kept seeing on TikTok.
That's what everyone
over and over. Yeah. And I would say that got disproven completely.
Yeah. Well, it did. The only reason why it could have made sense was because the way they directed and shot her flying that ship up. Like, it was weird.
Of course.
The way they were hanging on her.
They did it. It was on purpose.
But if you look at storyline, she's the one who united them all together, and Gideon was pissed that they were all united together. So there was it would have made no sense for her to actually be the spy. But anyways, we got ourselves an episode that no one really predicted. Was it as good as previous season finales? I don't know. We'll talk about it. But let's start with so last week me and Ged talked about how are they going to get this message up to the fleet. They've established earlier on the jetpacks run out of fuel fairly easy. And we're like, it's Axe-12 is probably just going to fly all the way through the atmosphere, all the way up into space, and do it. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Well, it wasn't. I don't think he was quite in space, though. I think they were still there was just above the clouds. It seemed like the whole ship. Like, he got to it, they were in high altitude kind of orbit, so they were already in the atmosphere. Like
a few episodes ago, they must have been chasing that dragon thing a long time for them to run out of juice.
It seemed like that, and in how they clipped and flashed with that, it seemed like they're trying to say it was a long ways away. It was on the other side, half the other planet away, kind of thing.
So we kind of pick up where the last episode left off. We see Din kind of handcuffed, getting taken away, and Bo-Katan's leading her troops out kind of to get away from the new Dark Troopers, rally her forces, and then regroup. So my first gripe of the episode: where the hell did Grogu come from? Like blast shield, right? Separating them. Mando's getting taken away, which you would think internal, and if Grogu went out where Bo-Katan and everyone went, that leads back to the Forge, and somehow he just appears and saves the day. That to me was
he clearly wasn't with the rest of them, and no one's like, hey, where'd Grogu go? He was with us. So yes, that was a little bit of a plot hole.
It was a stretch to have him appear exactly, and like Bo's quite aware that Grogu's like Mando's kid and everything like that, and the fact that Grogu just not only disappears but ends up behind enemy lines immediately with Mando and saves him. Like,
I mean, his obviously his force abilities are quite strong, showing in this episode. So he could have used his force abilities to find a way around. Like he just knows where he was, kind of thing. Maybe just for time thing, because the episode was about on time with everyone else. So they just did they might have cut it out just because it didn't like flow with it, but it did create a plot hole.
Yeah, I get you wanted Grogu with them. They just they're just like, you know what? Poof, appear.
Grogu. Yeah.
Save the day, Grogu. That was, it was, to me, it was a little bit jarring because it was like, this doesn't make any sense he got there.
Yeah.
And then I followed the big thing we got a lot of closure, so to speak, on the whole Dark Trooper and Gideon things. So we were kind of speculating last week, are the Dark Troopers actually a full-on clone? Why aren't they force sensitive if he took a piece from the Jedi? And now we find out that those were obviously early iterations of the clone, and his final masterpiece were all in the cloning chambers, almost fully baked. And Mando went in there and torched them all. What did he say? He suffocated them?
They didn't even get to take a breath. Didn't even get to take a breath yet.
Yeah. So we found out his newest version of the clone army would have been force sensitive. So now we know what Ola's plan was tied together. The other thing too, I thought was interesting early on when the one Dark Trooper is actually interacting with them. It did not sound like Giancarlo Esposito's voice. So I was like, okay, maybe they aren't clones inside those Dark Troopers.
No, I don't think so. I think they were just regular troopers.
Just troopers, and then the clones were going to be the next version, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because
See, I was trying to figure out, and I think like the Beskar that they're wearing is strong, but it's not pure Beskar. If you look like how
you called it a Beskar alloy, I think is what he did say.
Yeah, so because he didn't know how to use the forge, didn't know obviously where it was, or he would have been using it, and the Mandalorians know exactly, you need that water, which they showed earlier on. You need that, so like that dark saber.
Too bad the armor wasn't a spy for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. That was my tell, is that it was inferior armor, so it wouldn't have been her. Like it couldn't have been, because she would have given the exact way to make that armor better. Yeah. And it in the episode you can see it's strong, but not that strong.
Yep. So yeah, we got a complete picture now of what his project was. And we know that he was definitely keeping it for himself, because they replayed the beginning of it again, and he had that from last week, and he had that line to Hux like, "Oh, cloning is your project. Like, I have nothing to do with that." So obviously he was cloning everything for personal gain. And he probably thought that, right? If he had an army of Jedis wearing Beskar,
or at least force sensitive, they could wield weapons that are,
Yeah. So he probably thought, hey, I could probably take over the galaxy with this special forces kind of unit, so to speak, right?
He definitely could have, actually, when you think about, because there is, a lack of Jedi. There's a lack of Sith at this point that we know of. So it was kind of wide open for the taking. Like he could have ruled out real quick.
So then we get to a scene very reminiscent of the Phantom Menace, with the shield gates opening kind of one at a time. It was an interesting take on it. I like the way Mando was kind of beating them up, kind of 2 by 2 as he was going through, charging through. What I thought, again, minor gripe / I don't know if it's a plot hole or not, but like, where the hell did R5 come from? Like, Mando came on one of the Gauntlet starfighters. Like his N1 was left back on Navarro. Like
I think he's never left the planet. He's been on
you
the
don't think he ever
planet the whole
left?
No, because they didn't show him. I try to think of the other episodes. They didn't show him. I think he left him there to just scout and
Splunking?
explore. Yeah, splunking. Well, whatever. Just to keep exploring the planet for him, and that's why he knew he was there. Gave him a call, came on in. So,
yeah, because I'm trying to think back to that episode when they were there.
I don't remember him leaving.
Grogu left to go get Bo in the N1, but yeah, I don't know if R5 was with him or not. I'm trying to think if he was in any of the other episodes. Anyways, it's a minor point enough, but like if he was in other episodes, then it was like, then it's just lazy. Then it could have just been like, you solve it so easy. When they go to Mandalore, have Mando take the N1. Yeah. You know what I mean? Don't have him hop on and get hitch a ride. Like it's so easy to explain that. But yeah, maybe R5 was left on the planet the entire time.
I think he was. I think he was there the whole time. Now, obviously, they didn't go into it. It's only the episode's only so long. Maybe there's a reason that they could have cut. It could have been cut from the show. It could have had a little thing, and they cut it because it's like whatever. It's not going to be as big as. So take it out.
Yeah. So last week we speculated we were going to get a large space battle, and that's what I was really geared up for. But
that's what you really wanted, yeah.
We didn't really get it.
No, we got all the ships passing each other through the clouds.
Yeah, through the clouds. We totally missed each other. What we got it was definitely cool. It was just brief. Like I love the Disney Star Wars has evolved the angles and stuff like that they shoot with ships. Like they got like camera perspectives from like on wings, like behind cockpits. Like there's all these different stuff. It just creates a totally different dynamic now. And the way those interceptors and bombers are just dropping and then immediately thrusters up, and like they had a couple cool angles and stuff like that. The flying through the atmosphere layer, and then just the strafing runs across the light cruiser, where it was very cool to see them like just go to town. But like that was it. We see Axe Wolves on the bridge watching the ship kind of get hit, and then it cuts away from him, and then we don't see him again until he's crashing through the atmosphere. So there was no like, oh well, an interceptor hit the engines or something like that, he's going down. Like, you know what I mean? Like they really condensed that out. But what we got was, and you know what? It makes sense for the episode to have like people. I'm assuming big Mandalorian fans want full on Mandalorian jetpack,
and that was the big thing that they and once again with the ship and the battle, cutting room floor. They probably had. You got to think they had for this last episode. They probably had an hour and a half, and they had to cut it down. So.
Well, it was one or the other, right? All the Mandos jetpacks flying each other is basically like a big ship battle, anyways.
Yeah. Well, they're coming in like that when you had them all coming up to them. It was the Dark Troopers coming at them. That was great. That is what I wanted to see. I know you really wanted space battle. I wanted that. I wanted some big clash, and then they just ripped through them. It was great. I loved it. The armor, her only weapons are her tools. Is probably the most badass thing of any Mandalorian. She doesn't use guns. She just uses her tools to beat everybody with. And she's ripping down.
Yeah, so seeing Bo light the Darksaber and kind of lead the charge, I loved her flying through the air, just slicing through the. But then, you see the armor. She's just carrying her giant hammer. I'm just like, man, it kind of looks a little silly when Bo's Darksaber and everyone else has blasters. But then you see her just like baseball bat some guys in the head over and over and smash them. You're like, okay, she's badass.
Yeah, that was like where they're on the they had the big war on the planet. She was doing the same thing again a few episodes ago.
Yeah, when they liberated Navarro.
So going back to with that's inferior Beskar is when Bo puts that Darksaber right through one of the armored Dark Troopers.
Oh,
that's not happening. Like it's not going.
No, that's glancing off. Through. Yeah,
and that goes back to the episode where they're showing the shuttle the Lambda shuttle that got hit and taken. They found pieces of Beskar.
Yeah.
It was probably Dark Troopers that went in there with just got chipped off inferior armor, and that makes more sense now. That was never Mandalorians, because their armor wouldn't, and that's why I was like, their armor doesn't fall apart. Like it just survives everything.
Yeah.
So which gave actually, but we can go ahead into later about that with Gideon. He was full armor, full heavy armor, and like augmented too. And you got to wonder if he survived or died.
So I did have a note on this. So let's talk about the clones again. The one thing, whenever you're dealing with clones, was it actually the real Moff Gideon that they were dealing with?
You would think they have.
I'm assuming. Yeah, I'm assuming. Yes, it was the real one. But if there was ever a glimmer of they wanted to save character, they could have easily just had one of the Moff Gideon clones running that base. Because, like, when you think about it, Moff Gideon has been in jail. Like, I think Favreau came out and said that Grogu was with Luke for 2 years.
Yeah, he was. That's a bit of a time jump.
Yeah, so that means, like, yeah, right, which was kind of, it didn't feel like it, but so from the end of Mando season 2 to the Book of Boba Fett has been 2 years theoretically, right?
And that makes sense though.
Yeah. How long has Gideon been in custody for to when his broken shuttle was found? Was that just a recent transfer, or has that shuttle been lost for a while?
I think it's been lost for a while, how they were kind of trying to depict it. I mean, it looked like it's been floating in space a while. It didn't look fresh. It looked like it's been dead in the water for a while.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is like, say he was in custody bouncing around for a year or two. Like, what was his operations? We don't see any other officers or commanders in his operation. It's really like
No, it's him.
And that's it. Did he have a clone running that base, while he was trying to get out? Like, that'd be the only kind of wiggle room logical explanation I could see, is like, he's been running the cloning program the entire time, even though he's been locked up, because he's had a clone of himself doing it, right? He could have perfected not a force sensitive clone, but he could have just perfected a clone to be like, okay, you got to run operations.
Or he's had that base kind of there going, and it was like the shuttle just was found. It had been a long time, and he just was there again, just building it up. And
exactly, because that base could have always been his main base. It could have always been that. But
that makes sense in a way too.
But then it's like, why did he have then the base on Navarro with the cloning stuff as well? You know what I mean? And considering he first showed up on Navarro, so it's like, do you have multiple bases with cloning facilities? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's very imperial of him to do that. They seem to always spread out their tech through everywhere in little bases. Like, I mean, look at all Star Wars. They always have in the video games, everything. It's just bases everywhere. Yeah. So, him spreading it out is just right par for the course with Empire.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm assuming that was the real version of Gideon that died, but I
hope so.
There's always, I know, and like the thing about Gideon too this season, I kind of feel the misstep overall was, in the first season they built up the mystery as to who it was, right? He only appeared in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And then season 2, he was a lot more throughout the season, at least, like, not like obviously full episodes feature, but there were small check-ins with him and his progress, right? And then this season, he ends up being the main bad guy again, but he only got 2 episodes, which is kind of, I felt like, it's been 3 straight seasons now where the last 2 episodes have been dedicated to just Gideon bad guy gets defeated, which I don't know. I feel like we've done it before.
We know who we wanted. We know who we
exactly.
Wanted this episode.
That was where you could have escalated things and brought in the true bigger bad. Yeah. But it was just Gideon again, and there was no, like, I told Ged this last week. I said, since we got Admiral Pelion and the mention of Thrawn last week. I don't think we were going to get him this week. We didn't. I'm not happy to be right about it. But yeah, it was just. But I guess I don't know. I guess this ties a bow on Gideon's character and arc, and it's on for different things. What did you think about Gideon's last fight?
He wouldn't have stand a chance against full Super Saiyan Din Djarin if he didn't have that augmented armor.
So yeah, his armor was definitely like hydraulic, like previous version of Dark Trooper powered.
They made sure you heard those sounds, so that
every time he moved his legs, it was
every punch, he stopped the punch, like just full, like grabbed it, like he was this episode, I felt like they didn't hold back Din Djarin like they've done so many times, where you think this just be so much more badasses. Like they just hold that back. Like I always found like what they did with Boba Fett. Boba Fett came in, he was massively badass, and then he got a show. It's like all of a sudden he lost all that. It's like playing a video game. You play a video game, and then by the end you're really badass, and then you play the second version, like Zelda. You play the second one, and it's like you should already be badass, but you start over again. And that's what they kind of did. Like they kind of built them back up again through this season to be back to this fully like
badass. He was like 1 verse 3ing a lot this episode, I found.
And that's the way I feel like he should be.
So we did have a major death. It was the end of the Darksaber. The end of the Darksaber.
It was the end of that iteration of the Darksaber.
Yeah. So Gideon just crushed it. Yeah, they could totally take that crystal out, I would imagine, and do something else with it.
There is a lot.
But who knows how to make lightsabers still, though, at this time period, right? Like, I'm sure Luke's not looking to do that.
Well, we know already from the Ahsoka preview who knows how to make the lightsabers, who is around still at this time period.
What's his name? Hung?
If I had my friend Kaylee here, she'd tell me. She's the hardcore one that'd be like, you don't know that?
Yeah. There is, the droid saber guy is actually there, So it'll be interesting if they make a new one. I actually thought during that fight, Bo-Katan was going to die. It was getting to a point where I was expecting a major death based on Buddy's tweets, right? Based on all the leakers saying something was going to happen. I was like, oh man, they got it wrong. Like it's going to be Bo. Like I thought he was going to, there was a moment there. I thought
it looked like it before Din came in and shot him in the back. And they shed the little we're not alone. We're stronger together thing. And I thought too. I think that's the way they were playing it up. People were like, oh, she's dead. She's dead. You know what? You're right. They made it seem like she was going to, and it's great that they came back and didn't kill her. And
the tension was good, and it's also you know what, the shows almost benefit in a little bit of way of people saying they got a source and someone's going to die, or someone theorizing like this is definitely going to happen, because that was in my brain. I was more on edge than what I normally would be, because normally I'd be like, Bo and Mando, like none of them are getting hurt, but because that uncertainty was there, I was like, oh, maybe she will go down. So we see Axe Wolves. Sometimes this drives me nuts. So he flies the ship right in there to annihilate everything, which I get. Take them all out in one shot. Looks awesome. I love that he just wrist launched the window and just flies right out last minute. But part of me is just
I thought he was going down. I thought he was going down, dying with the ship, take out everybody. I don't know if the character was something they needed in the future, and it would have been more dramatic to just go down with the ship. Obviously, Dave Filoni's probably got some other things for him in the future already written in, so he didn't want to get rid of him. Maybe he's in the Ahsoka or any other thing. So, I wish he went down with the ship and just took it all out with himself.
But some of it drives me like, what though? Like sometimes I can't help but think, being like, you're trying to rebuild a planet. You have a fully functional base, literally ripe for the taking, but you're like, nah, I'm just gonna nuke it.
That's the
But I get
Mandalorian way,
it.
though. That's
I get
the
it.
battle thing. That's the
Yeah,
way.
I get it. You want to wipe all trace of Empire away. I get it. And for all we know, plot wise, there could be dark troopers all through that base, right? So
Yes.
we just don't see them currently on screen. So I get they had to do it, but sometimes they're like, man, having that base with the comms and the hangar and all that would go a long way to like jump starting your planet. Just hire, a Mandalorian interior decorator to, spruce things up a little bit. But no, it's a cool moment watching that guy just plow down into it.
Oh yeah, that was the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I think going back to the Mandalorian way, that's
Yeah.
why the planet was totally barren. It wasn't just barren from getting glass. Like getting glass made it really bad. But like they talk about it in the show, that episode, how like that the garden was growing underground of all natural plant life, because they had so many civil wars and stuff over the years, because that's just the way they are. The surface was decimated anyways.
Yeah.
And so they like that. I think that's the way that the plant's going to come back, is they're going to actually bring those plants back to the surface and regrow the planet. Unlike Tatooine, which got glassed. Oh God. The reason Tatooine's a desert planet, because it was a big forest planet too, and it got glassed, and that's what happens to it over time. So I think the Mandalorians are actually going to bring this plant life back to the whole fold. And
Hoff, that is I'm surprised the Mythosaur didn't play more of a role in this episode. I didn't think about that for crashing, but I was waiting for something to happen with the Mythosaur, like whether Bo was like, okay, like I got reinforcements, so I'm going to get the Mythosaur or something like that. What I thought was interesting, Corbin and Hoff, if you want to comment, when at the end, I know we're jumping around a little bit now, but at the end when they're doing the whole foundling and the waters of the mine there, when Grogu kind of looks into the water, they do that weird scene where it goes down to the Mythosaur to open its eye. Now, is that just the Mythosaur is like, okay, Mandalore's back, I'm happy, or does that have something to do with Grogu? And we know Grogu has a connection to animals and creatures and stuff like that.
Well, and this is where I was going to comment on this. I was going to wait till later too. I think Grogu is Mandalore. I think he is the next Mandalore. He's the Force sensitive. He's officially a Mandalorian because he got adopted. So he's Din Grogu now, which I think is awesome. And that the dark saber getting crushed means that he's going to rebuild that to fit him. It's going to be the dark saber is going to be him.
That could be his
could be in the movies
he creates with that crystal.
Yeah, it could be, because what did they work it out that he should be just coming up on 100 for the next series of movies that are going to be coming out. With Ray and stuff.
He was 50 at the for season 1 of Mando, and we're probably 3-4 years in the future now. So
I think it's 90 something years old, and Yoda was
30 to the sequel trilogy. Yeah.
So if Yoda was a master at 100. He keeps working on his powers. Clearly, Luke taught him some stuff, because that the Force Shield, War Shield, they call it, being as powerful as that was a pretty big thing for him to be taught. Which the Jedi were, and Sith too, taught apprentices at a young age and stuff to be able to do. And he did that that was a full blast. He totally protected through that whole blast.
I love that nod. Just when I saw that, I was like, he's doing the canon. I was like, yes. Mind you, he held it where Kanan couldn't. So, but Kanan was
powerful. He's powerful.
Yeah, and Kanan was I'm trying to think. Like those were what was Kanan on top of again? What were they? They were reactors or something of some sort. And there was going to be a chain reaction explosion. He's like, I can't hold it, and you guys get away at the same time. That's why he force pushed Hera and Ezra away and took it himself. Grogu basically fought back the explosion of a light cruiser exploding into a small canyon type base, right?
It looked like the sun in there, and that was you really did
he
a
took
good
a huge
job of that
blast
explosion, and he fully took that. And then what you see compared to the first season where he with the Mudhorn, where he was passed out cold after like lifting it.
Yeah.
The little bit of training that Luke gave him over 2 years, or intense training it could have been, was enough to get him powered up to this point. Like he is going to be, by the time he's talking and actually I guess you'd call it an adolescent in the species kind of way of they grow, he's going to be a force. Like he's going to be like a tank. And that's why I think he is going to be Mandalore, because I think he's fully in the way. This episode really showed that he was willing to use his powers more than he ever has to fight, which he hasn't really fought with them. He doesn't. Yeah. He was totally against it. Obviously when they keep going back to flashbacks to, all the other younglings getting killed by Order 66, and he kind of shut down. And now this episode really kind of brought him back to say, no, I'm going to use my powers to fight. And he did. And I thought the little subtle things that he did were a lot. I was hoping he was going to grab one of those energy swords and like just slash or something.
A couple of times he force pushed him, but I was like, oh, he's force pulling it into him right now, and he just never ever did.
He never grabbed it. I was like,
God. I know. I was waiting for him to grab one and just one big slice to save the day, but not quite.
But even still, like it showed his powers have come a long way, and he's still a child. So what's he going to be when like these Disney obviously is going to keep this. Like this is just a moneymaker. Grogu's a moneymaker, so they're going to put him in the next movie, like the series. Yeah, he's going to be.
They got a interesting, delicate thing now. They got a storyline. They got a thread with Grogu, because if he's like, say he's like, I don't want to say he's Grandmaster Yoda powerful or has that potential, but say he's like,
I think he does. I think he's got it.
But even if he's a tier below, like that's a powerful being to not be present at all during the sequel trilogy, right?
Yeah.
They found ways for like explaining Ahsoka and stuff like that, so they're gonna have to come up with a way. And you know what, it might end up being, because he's not a Jedi, he does not part of the New Republic or anything. He's literally a Mandalorian. He's got his own things.
Beskar, full Beskar covered version of him with what I think he could have. Like I said, he could be Mandalore by that point. Is a new Darksaber that he's created would be amazing. It would just be like keep the Mandalorians have been around forever. So there'd be no reason for them not to have built back up a full empire by the time these new movies come around. So I think they're setting that up. I think this is all a big setup for it. Like they're really trying to make it now he is going this path.
The other big change they're going to need to do then as well, if they do focus on Grogu in the future, is they're going to have to make him fully CGI, right? Like if he's talking and speaking and stuff like that and bigger, they're going to have to go back to where now he's like a little CGI / mostly puppet and like.
Yeah, but if they put a helmet on his head, they could probably get away with doing a lot of puppet with it and augment with CGI. Because you're not seeing the physical expressions on his face. And when he does, if he does, depending on how he goes with his creed, if he goes by what his little faction is, he'll never take his helmet off anyways.
Yeah.
But if he does, it could be in scenes where you can easily.
But even now, you know what I mean? When he's jumping around and moving, you could see you can almost see it's like puppeteer type movements. You know what I mean? It's very slow, whatever. Like if he's like just picture Yoda, right? If he's full blown Yoda, it's going to be hard to there could be Return of the Jedi Yoda, which
did you see how he was walking into the bar? He was like force walking. He was jumping. It was like he was using the force to walk, so he didn't have little baby steps. Yeah, and I'm like, it was very puppety, like it was super almost a marionette. And I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. But
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him if he does become more featured, right? Right. So let's talk.
How could they not though?
Yeah,
Like,
I get it, especially if if he survives up until the end of the Thrawn movie, right? So
yes.
Um, so let's talk about the end and where we're going to go from here. So we see that now that since Mando's adopted Grogu, he has to leave Mandalore. I'm assuming that's a thing that you got to do to go get experiences in life, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's told he has to leave. So he does his little, surprisingly, he goes to the New Republic base and basically says, I really only know how to bounty hunt, but I'm not a bounty hunter. I want to basically kill Imperials. So will you forward me some funds and I'll take care of all the remnants, right? I'm kind of, well, it makes sense that, what's his name? What's Kim Convenience's name? I always
Oh
forget it.
God.
Anyways, it made sense that he was going to be
I
looped
call
in
him the
there.
same thing.
Yeah. But now that he is kind of unofficially part of the New Republic, it's now opening up the opportunity for him to like potentially join like Ahsoka in the future, right? Because if Ahsoka is teaming up with, not that Ahsoka's New Republic, but if Ahsoka's teaming up with Hera and Sabine, their New Republic, they're looking for Imperial remnants, they're looking for Thrawn. Now Mando kind of has a common goal and a way to join that going forward. So
and
I think
that
it's a
makes
nice,
sense because they talked about wanting to get all of this like as a everything's going to all be wrapped up in one big thing, right? So
yeah,
you gotta they're gonna have crossover. Maybe you get some Boba Fett in there again, instead of just being in his own show. Like he could
yeah.
easily cross over with some stuff as well. So it definitely helps to set it up that he's going to continue making appearances.
Do
Uh,
do you think that Bo-Katan will now kind of not really be in season 4 whenever it comes around?
um,
Because now that they've
no, I
finished the
think
Mandalorian the storyline now, right? Like
no.
Mandalore has been
She'll
liberated,
definitely be in it.
reclaimed. I
Yeah, but
can't, not like
it'll
she
be
was
him
this
going
season.
back.
Yeah, yeah,
No. It definitely won't be because this was a big arc for her. They
yeah,
needed this to show that she is the leader. She's the leader again. Everyone's
yeah,
going to follow her. You're going to get more Mandalorians that are off world coming back because there is more out there.
yeah.
Not just those two little factions. There's a lot of Mandalorians, and they will
Oh
all
yeah,
come back now after this. The
yeah,
stories. Hey, the forge has been lit again. They're coming home, and they got the armorer who was saying, "Hey, this is the leader." And you got the ones that follow under her are going to say, okay, she's the leader, and then
yeah.
the other half was just going to accept her because she was the leader. She should still be the leader. So you're still going to see, if have they announced that there's going to be another season, or are they kind
I
of
think
throwing
so.
it up in
Well,
the air
I
still?
don't think it's officially announced, but I think it's. I would personally, I would say it's like a 99.9% chance we're getting
Yeah,
season
so
4.
you're
I don't
gonna
see why they don't.
see you're gonna see him come back to Mandalore for something, and
Yeah,
it's gonna
she'll be
be
like a
back. It's gonna be the future.
one. Yeah,
We're gonna
she'll be
we're gonna be
like
like,
probably like the Grief Karga role going forward, right? Like a little pit stop, check in, ask a favor, something like that. But like
yeah,
her,
an episode
yeah,
or two
yeah,
kind of
they're
thing.
yeah, she's no longer integral to the main plot. But now
No,
they've set up, as long as she's building up the Mandalorians, whenever that skirmish with Thrawn happens, they know, okay, let's go to Bo-Katan, owes us a favor. She's got all the Mandalorians, they'll go to war with us, sort of thing.
well, and especially since it's their hatred for the Imperials now are so
Yeah,
great, and he is as much as he is an Imperial. Still dresses like it, obviously. So
yeah,
when they get called upon, I think they are all about war. They're about fighting, and they're about honor. So the honor is that you owe that favor, like you said.
yeah.
Get in there and fight, and they'll do it without question. So that yes, that's another thing to. And there's the wrap up thing that they're talking about, getting all the stuff they've been doing into one thing and doing a big wrap up with it all. So
Yeah, I heard there was an interview and they asked like, will the movie, everything's going to culminate in like basically be the season finale for the Mandalorian, and they were non-committal. They said it might not be. There could still be stories to tell. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's the Grogu part.
That's the Grogu part. Yeah,
that's got to be the Grogu part. I think he like I said, he matures. He goes on in the future. He becomes Mandalore. So the Mandalorians are still around. He leads an empire, but he also is not a Jedi kind of deal. Like he's a gray. He's going to be a full gray.
He's an unaligned Force user.
Yeah, but I think he'll bend both sides, because I feel like with what he does, and he will definitely bend both ways and be a full gray Jedi or Force user.
All right, so let's give this thing a score. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I am going to score this. I've been kind of going back and forth on this a little bit. I think I'm going to land on an 8.9 for this episode. I thought the action was solid. Me personally, whenever I go into something with high expectations and I don't get what my high expectations are, I come away slightly, I don't want to say the word disappointed because that's a little too harsh.
No, I definitely wasn't disappointed with the episode.
Yeah, maybe underwhelmed. Like an 8.9 is a really, 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 really solid score for me. It's just, I was expecting a raging space battle. I was hoping to see some sort of tie-in with like maybe Sabine or Hera or even Boba. Like I thought someone was coming.
I thought the Thrawn. We talked about it. I thought
Thrawn.
It was end credits. After
something.
Everything, Thrawn comes in and wipes out everyone that wasn't following him.
Yeah. They even go back to that little rebel outpost, and they don't even have Zeb there this time around.
No, that's what I was like. Where's he gone now?
Yeah, it'd be so cool if Mando bellied up to the bar beside Zeb and just had like an offhanded remark to him or something. Like there's, and again, these are just minor kind of things, but I talked about there's the two plot things that I thought stuck out to me, with Grogu just randomly appearing and R5 again kind of out of nowhere. But overall, very strong episode. And it's a solid end to the Mandalore arc, so to speak. So yeah. How about you? What do you got?
I am probably right there with 8.9. Obviously, last week I gave a 9.9 on that episode because I loved it. I loved the last episode.
I love last week's episode. Yeah.
This one was slightly weaker, but also had parts that I liked more. I mean, I am a Mandalorian fan. I have always been. Every video game I've ever played, like going back, like your Knights of the Old Republic games. If I could put all the Mandalorian armor on, I'd put that Mandalorian armor on. I love the shit. So I like I love that. That big battle, the like flying in and just everything about it was just great for me. But I just can't give it as good a mark as last week. I thought last week was better. This one, like I said, it had parts that were better, but the overall it's not bad. Hey, an 8.9 is a good score. It's a good episode. And I felt like it really made it so that this show can keep moving in the future. It ended everything, like you said, it ended an arc nicely. Now the show can kind of go off on its own way. And the characters can go off in their own way now too. So, you get a lot of TV and stuff where that just doesn't happen. And they did it really nicely and subtly that everything is taken care of. While still leaving stuff to be able to build on in the future.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you brought up, and it was something I planned on talking. I think me and Ged might do like a season episode kind of sum up and talk about, but I'll just touch on the one point that you kind of hinted at. I think if you ask a lot of people, this season was probably a little bit weaker than the previous. I've heard stuff like people claim that they have sources that Jon Favreau doesn't give a shit anymore and is just mailing it in. Which, like, if you're a professional, even if he doesn't care, if you're a professional and you have a property like Star Wars, you don't bomb it on purpose.
No,
I think
he's too passionate. He's too passionate to mail it in. Like,
yeah.
I don't think this. I think it's just that people. It's a third season. You know,
well,
people are expecting a certain thing, and they want more, but it's still giving you the same thing.
Well, I think what this season suffered from in general, again, there was some very highs in this episode, and there was some like, you know, are we really doing this kind of episodes? I think what they suffered from is since Mandalorian's been such a big hit, now you got Ahsoka coming. You got there might be some tie-ins with the Skeleton Crew. You got the Book of Boba Fett. So now you have all these different narratives, and now all of a sudden, the Mandalorian season like episode just can't do what it wants anymore. You know what I mean? It has to carefully weave this plot line with all these other shows now. You know what I mean? It kind of has to tease Thrawn and set up this and then set up that. And I think by having that, it felt a little disjointed. But kind of as you said, though, now it's kind of wrapped up in a neat bow, though, now. Like Mandalore plot's taken care of. We've now freed up Din and Grogu to go off on whatever adventure they need. It's kind of like they hit the reset button to now open up the storytelling. So now it's almost going to be like the next season we get to see Ahsoka, right, in August, whatever. Now the results of that, Favreau was
August,
writing.
Or is it sooner?
It's August, or I don't know, maybe it's a little sooner. But
I was a little sooner, but either way,
summertime.
Yes, right. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Now that it's freed up, maybe season 4, the writing will be a little bit different because just there's not so much weight on trying to, you know what I mean. Like I felt like they were trying to settle plot lines from seasons 1 and 2, and at the same time making it work with all these other shows. I think it was probably just a big spider's web behind scenes trying to make it happen.
They only had 8 episodes to do this.
Exactly, and only 8 episodes.
And like I said, this episode felt like they probably made an hour and a half a show, and they had to cut it. They were told to cut it down. And that could be a little bit of Kathleen Kennedy, which has been kind of hinted at that she might have her fingers in it a little more than what John likes. So
be hating on Kathy.
But you know what I mean? Like it could be a little bit to soften. Like you would have thought that Gideon would have got his head cut off with the dark saber, and that's what I was really hoping for. I love the way it ended. I love that they flew a ship right through his face. Yeah. But you would have thought, you know, maybe.
I think most people want to see Bo-Katan use the dark saber and take him out with it because that weapon has been such a plot point device between the two of them, right?
They've had dark saber, like I said, the video games it showed up. I think first. I'm pretty sure, the video games that showed up first is kind of like an Easter egg. It's like, oh, what's this? This is cool. And it's kind of taken a life on its own and turned into this thing that they put into the show as the Mandalorian thing, which has made it so much more. And that's where I think that, like I said, about Grogu making his saber out of that eventually is going to be a thing because it sets it up for that. Because he couldn't have used that without breaking it down. It was too big for him because Yoda's saber is a short saber. It has to be for his size. So it is really a big setup for that. So, you know, obviously in future we'll see, but I'm excited.
We'll see. Unless it was wiped out in the explosion, we'll just never know.
I'm trying to think if she dropped it.
Yeah,
she was holding it. I don't. Did she? Yeah.
She
did.
The ground. I think it hit the ground. But that platform was intact. Obviously, they're standing on it, but who knows what happened?
Well, the Kyber crystal wouldn't have gone up. The Kyber crystal would have probably survived that. Yeah, and it was actually, it was made of Beskar, was it not? Which actually, no, I think it actually is the Beskar that the hilt's made out of. So, yeah, he crushed that thing, that's pretty impressive. So that suit was strong if he did that.
Can you imagine Force-sensitive ones in that suit? Like he
was... would have been like, well, no, they did say if you wear armor as a Force, like you play any game, you watch anything, as when you're wearing armor, your Force abilities go down a bit. Not necessarily your fighting abilities, but your other uses of the Force go down. So, like,
they would have been making a call to Luke Skywalker. That's all I know.
Yeah.
All right, we have been rambling enough.
Yes.
Time to wrap this up. So let us know in the comments, everyone, what you thought of this episode. Did we miss anything? And where do you think Mando's going next? Where do you think he's headed next? He's obviously chasing that Thrawn lead, which is going to lead him to some exciting new friends, I hope. But peace out, everyone, and we'll see you all on the next stream.